Professor, all right, 5.2 billion rand has been set aside for the expansion of the MyCiti Bus Rapid Transit system over the next 3 years. And this plan was, of course, in place long before the current taxi strike out in Cape Town. Now, the almost total collapse of the rail system in the city has led to commuters being heavily reliant on road-based transport. But could all this have been avoided? Well, let's rope in Professor Hangwelani Magidimisha-Chipungu, the first black woman in South Africa to obtain a full professorship in the discipline of town and regional planning, to shed more light. Professor, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show. Now, the taxi strike in the Western Cape has brought to the fore the remnants of spatial planning and, of course, the long-lasting effects of apartheid. Do you think that government has done enough to address this issue, not just in the Western Cape, but nationwide?
Good evening to you, Alicia, and your viewers. I think you're asking very critical question as to have we done enough? And that's not an easy answer to give, but suffice to say, when we are talking about spatial planning and apartheid planning, we're talking about something which is physical, right? So we're talking about purposely excluding people from a particular space and put them at the peripheral. Mm-hmm. So that is physical. So for you to be able to correct that, it's not an easy thing. It's not like you're just going to wake up tomorrow and say, you're going to have to move this, you're going to reshuffle you, we're going to move you from one point to another. People, they are attached to their space. So I do not think we have done enough, and it's going to even be very difficult to even reverse the apartheid planning because it's physical. So it costs money, it costs emotion, it costs a lot of things. But perhaps the discussion should be, how do we then improve current situation going forward?
All right, Prof, look, the strike also brought the province to a standstill. What do you think were the biggest contributing factors in this regard? And could they have been mitigated way ahead of time in terms of the city always having an alternative plan for such eventualities?
Yeah, so it's very frustrating and concerning that when one type of public transport strikes, everything comes to a standstill. It's obviously a sign of poor planning as a country. You will realize that as a country, our transport system, a special public transport system, is heavily reliant on public transport such as taxi, mm-hmm. and to some degree buses. Now, if you don't present people with enough options, obviously, this is what's going to happen. So what we are having in South Africa is that our public transport has not been well developed. The infrastructure is geared towards one mode of public transport. So this is what's going to happen. So if taxi is strike, everything should come to a standstill because that is your main public transport. But if you go to other countries, you will see that we need to introduce variety and give people more options to say, how are you going to maneuver within the cities? What else can you do? If taxis are not available, what else can you use? And therefore, it speaks with the transport system and the network. How do roads connect? What other road transport do you have? Are you going to have only depending on the transport and buses? If it doesn't work, then what? So if we had an alternative transport system, transport industry won't have this much power like they have now. So they have this much power to put everything to a standstill because they are the main ones, right? So we have not provided an alternative.
Prof, look, it's Women's Month, and I'd like to wish you a happy Women's Month, and I cannot let you go before firstly wishing you a great one and also congratulating you on your achievement of being the first black woman in South Africa to obtain a full professorship in the discipline of town and regional planning. What do you hope to do with this achievement, Prof?
Of course, I would have to continue with my mentorship, which I've been doing over the years, of young academics and everyone else interested in being a planner. It does not necessarily mean that you have to be a town planner or you have to be a professor. You can be a very good manager wherever you are. But also just to make sure that I continue working with the both local and international scholars in my work, and I will be releasing a couple of books and my findings that are based on my research, which I've been doing a couple of years back.
All right. And very quickly, Professor, just for interest, take us through a list of things that government should be focusing on, especially around this sector, in highlighting its relevance and also encouraging others to follow suit in your footsteps.
So there are a number of things that the government should be focusing on, and I think I've said this before, to say what we're supposed to be focusing on is to try to make sure that we provide alternative transport system, right? That is the first thing, because you cannot have, like I said earlier on, a country which come to a standstill because taxis are not striking. That's just not fair. Then the other thing that we're supposed to be looking at is that how do we then develop the peripheral areas? This is your rural areas, so that at least you don't concentrate economic activities in one space like we are having now. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Also, try to release land. Land is not elastic, right? So right now we are talking about trying to undo the spatial apartheid planning. But we cannot do that without having access to land. So let's find a way in which we're going to release land which is strategically located. And of course, we do have data which does indicate that most of the land which is strategically located is in the hands of the private sectors. So how do we unlock that land?
All right, Prof, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your contribution. That was Professor Hangwelani Magidimisha-Chipungu, a phenomenal woman there, giving us some serious insight, of course, into the world of spatial planning and how it could assist, of course, in the current issues like what we are currently seeing with the taxi strike and how people are actually affected by it.